extreme distension of the child's stomach that I can only presume was from the injuries that ultimately caused her to die.
From Cierre Wood, who punished his girl child to death, to Dave Merritt, who was arrested for hurting his own daughter, to Justin Crawford, who preyed on a young girl in his care. These are NFL legends who went too far with their daughters, starting with Cierre Wood. Cruelty toward a child can wear a lot of disguises, but few are as chilling as a grown man treating a 5-year-old like she failed a tryout. And that's exactly the road Cierre Wood walked down. Here was a running back who had tasted the league, suiting up for the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots, and the Buffalo Bills, with a stint up north in the Canadian Football League on top of it. This was a man who understood discipline, a man who understood what a human body could be pushed to do, and in April of 2019, inside a Las Vegas apartment, he weaponized every bit of that knowledge against someone who couldn't fight back. He'd been living with his girlfriend of roughly 6 months, Amy Taylor, and her 5-year-old daughter, Lariah Davis. The little girl had been part of that household for less than 2 weeks, less than 14 days. Here's where the story turns your stomach. Wood looked at this kindergartner and decided she was, in his own words, chunky, and that she needed to get on the right path. So he made a baby do sprints across the apartment, sit-ups, wall squats. He ran a 5-year-old through a punishment workout like she was a draft prospect trying to make weight. On April 9, 2019, he told investigators she'd been exercising when she fell backward and hit her head. A simple accident, he wanted them to believe, but the coroner told a story his version could never explain away. The Clark County Coroner's Office determined this child died from multiple blunt force injuries, at least 100 bruises across her torso, legs, and abdomen, around 20 newly broken ribs, a lacerated liver, internal bleeding, bruises on her heart and diaphragm. That is not a fall, that is sustained torment. When the judge spoke at those early proceedings about what she'd reviewed, the courtroom went cold.
The injuries were the kinds of things that once you've seen them, you can't ever unsee them. Severe injuries.
A judge, a person who sees the worst of humanity for a living, describing the autopsy of a child who'd been alive 2 weeks before. And the detail that stood out most to her, the one no parent could ever wave away as an accident, was the damage hidden inside.
And I think of most significance is the severe lacerations to the child's liver.
In April of 2024, Wood entered an Alford plea to second-degree murder and 1 count of felony child abuse, acknowledging the state had enough to convict without fully admitting guilt. By August 13, 2024, Judge Jacqueline Bluth handed down life in prison with parole possible only after 10 years, plus a consecutive term of 28 months to 6 years for the abuse charge. Amy Taylor faced charges too and pleaded guilty to related offenses. A man who knew exactly how much a body could take and used that knowledge to take a child apart piece by piece. And if you think this kind of physical horror only comes from a stranger or a girlfriend's new boyfriend, the next name proves it can land far closer to a man's own blood. Dave Merritt. Sometimes the breaking point isn't a monstrous campaign of abuse, but a single night that swallows a man whole, against a child who shares his last name. And that's the situation that found Dave Merritt the night before the 2026 NFL Draft. A veteran coach who'd patrolled NFL sidelines for years, serving as the Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs coach since 2019. He was 54 years old, a father of 5, a former linebacker who had built a respected career out of teaching young men how to play the game the right way. And then in April of 2026, he was arrested on a misdemeanor domestic battery charge involving one of his own daughters. The man whose whole job was discipline found himself accused of losing it at home. The breakdown of what happened came out fast and clear in the coverage.
So Chiefs defensive backs coach Dave Merritt was arrested the night before the 2026 NFL Draft.
The charge itself accused Merritt of acting unlawfully, knowingly, or recklessly in causing bodily harm, classified as a domestic violence offense, a Class B person misdemeanor. And the reporting made painfully clear exactly who that harm was alleged against.
That on suspicion of domestic battery, a misdemeanor involving alleged bodily harm to a family member.
That family member, according to the complaint, was his daughter. Now, the public details here stay thin, which is common in family cases where everyone involved wants privacy protected. But the complaint indicated his actions crossed from a parental argument into physical conduct that left bodily harm serious enough to bring in the police. He was arrested around 8:50 p.m. on April 22, 2026, then booked into the Johnson County Jail. He pleaded not guilty in an initial appearance held over Zoom, posted a $2,500 bond, and walked out. Then came the turn. The case got dismissed without prejudice in early May of 2026. His attorney released a statement saying the DA's office looked at it a little more thoroughly, reviewed additional information, and agreed it should be dismissed. The NFL reviewed the matter under its personal conduct policy and ultimately found insufficient evidence for any disciplinary action. So Merritt kept his coaching job, no conviction sitting on his record. But that phrase "without prejudice" carries a small asterisk worth understanding. Technically,
Because without prejudice technically means the prosecutor can still refile the same charges.
those charges could come back if more evidence ever surfaced. Realistically, the people who do this for a living say that almost never happens. So a coach walks away clear, but the arrest itself marks the exact spot where a father's authority got perceived, even briefly, as crossing into harm against his own daughter. Merritt's night ended in a quiet dismissal and a return to the sideline. The next man's accusations were anything but quiet, and they dragged a small child through something no 7-year-old should ever have to describe. Thomas Burke. Some men on this list earned their place through rage, but the accusations against Thomas Allen Burke describe a betrayal of a far more sinister kind, the kind that hides behind the word secret. A former defensive end who spent 4 seasons in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals from 1999 to 2002 after a standout run at the University of Wisconsin that later earned him a spot in the school's Athletic Hall of Fame in 2020. He carried the look of a hometown hero. He was 44 years old, originally from the Poplar and Rice Lake area of Wisconsin. And in 2021, that hometown hero image collided with a charge of first-degree criminal sexual conduct involving the repeated sexual assault of a 7-year-old girl who knew him in a trusted father figure-like capacity. According to the criminal complaint, the little girl disclosed to her mother in February of 2021 that Burke had assaulted her on numerous occasions. She described it in heartbreaking words as something that's been a secret. In a later forensic interview, she gave detailed accounts, indicating as many as 4 or 5 separate incidents involving inappropriate touching of her genital area. She described Burke using his hand in his mouth, and in at least one instance, she said she asked him to stop, and that he did. The assaults allegedly happened when Burke was alone with her in St. Louis County, Minnesota, in the Duluth area. A man trusted enough to be left alone with a child, accused of turning that trust into a weapon. The mother reported the disclosures promptly, and that report led to Burke's arrest in June of 2021. He faced a potential prison sentence of 12 to 14 years or more if convicted, but Burke never bent. He denied everything, insisting there were no sexual acts at all. He took the witness stand in his own defense and described his disbelief when police first showed up at his home with these accusations. He looked the jury in the eye and told them it never happened. Then came the trial in January of 2024, where the child herself took the stand and testified about what she said she'd lived through. After deliberation, a St. Louis County jury came back and acquitted Burke on all 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct. Not guilty in late January of 2024. So here is a man cleared by a jury of his peers, free to walk out the courthouse door. And yet the allegations, the forensic interview, the public trial, all of it pulled the most private corners of his life into the open for everyone to weigh. A father figure accused of the unthinkable who walked free. Leaving a community to sit with everything that had been said in that room, a jury gave Burke the benefit of the doubt. The next man left no doubt at all, because the words that sank him came straight out of his own mouth. Justin Crawford. There is wrongdoing, and then there is a confession so cold it rewrites your understanding of how low a grown man will sink to excuse himself, which is the wreckage Justin Crawford left behind. He'd been a star at West Virginia University, earning Big 12 Newcomer of the Year honors in 2016 with over 100 rushing yards, then signing with the Atlanta Falcons as an undrafted free agent in 2018 before getting cut in the preseason. The dream was right there, and by October of 2018, that dream was buried under serious sexual charges involving a 12-year-old girl. The incidents happened in his Columbus, Georgia home, and the minor was a relative, a familial connection that supported an incest charge on top of everything else. This is the breach of trust that haunts the worst corners of this whole story. Around 5 a.m., his wife discovered him standing over the sleeping girl on the couch, completely naked. His wife confronted him on the spot, right there in the dark. The girl later told her mother that Crawford had woken her, forced her to perform on him, her. He was charged with aggravated child molestation, incest, sodomy, and enticing a child for indecent purposes, every single one of them a felony. And during the police interrogation, Crawford admitted to the acts, but then he said something that turns the stomach. He claimed it was the girl's idea, that she had initiated it. One commentator who covered the case refused to let that excuse breathe for even a second.
And you a grown man. You're a grown man. Now you know this girl is 12-year-old.
The point lands like a hammer. A child cannot consent. A child cannot initiate. A child cannot be blamed. The entire weight of responsibility sat on the adult in that house, and he tried to hand it to a 12-year-old.
You said that talking about, oh, it was her idea. She wanted it. How can a little girl want it?
How can a little girl want it? That question hangs over the whole case like a storm cloud. After nearly a year in custody, in September of 2019, Crawford pleaded guilty in Muskogee County Superior Court to child molestation and sodomy, with the other counts dropped as part of the deal. He was sentenced to 20 years total, 12 to serve in prison followed by 8 on probation. He has to register as a sex offender, and he is barred from contact with anyone under 18, including his own 3 children. The arrest had already torched his last football hope, as the AAF's Atlanta Legends waived him immediately after it broke. Crawford's harm was physical, direct, and undeniable. The next man never raised a hand to his daughters, yet his name still earns a place on this list for a reason that's just as real, only quieter. Terrell Owens. Harm doesn't always mean a hand raised in anger. Sometimes it means a hand that was never there at all, and that absence is the accusation trailing Terrell Owens through this story. One of the most accomplished wide receivers the league has ever produced, T.O. built a 15-year career stacked with 6 Pro Bowl selections and over 15 receiving yards, earning an estimated $80 million along the way. But his role as a father to 4 children with multiple mothers, including daughters, brought a very different kind of spotlight. Let me be crystal clear right now. There are no allegations of physical or sexual abuse here, none whatsoever. Instead, Owens stands accused of failing in the opposite direction, of neglect, of leaving his kids in unstable or uncared for situations despite all that money in the bank. At one point, his child support obligations reportedly totaled around $44,600 a month across his children, and he kept falling behind on them. Multiple court actions, contempt threats, public accusations from the mothers that the kids weren't being properly cared for. In one prominent case involving Melanie Smith, the mother of his young daughter, Owens owed roughly $20,000 in back support after missing several months of an agreed $5,000 a month. She had to return to court again and again, frustrated that she leaned on that money to support their daughter while he delayed or skipped it. When confronted about the numbers on Dr. Phil, Owens described how he claimed to have raised the payments himself over time.
I voluntarily changed her child support willingly from $6,000 to $8,000 to $10,000 to $12,000 on my own.
But the real question wasn't whether he'd once been generous. It was whether he could keep up now. And on that point, he admitted the truth without flinching.
Listen, it's not about the math, but can you afford to pay all this?
Not at this moment in time, no, I can't.
He sought reductions when he was unemployed or strapped, and judges sometimes denied him, pointing at the gap between his earnings and his obligations. He's openly acknowledged limited involvement in his children's daily lives, citing his schedule and personal struggles. Owens eventually made the payments needed to resolve specific cases and dodge jail, but the pattern stretched on for years. A father with every means to provide stability, who kept forcing the mothers back into a courtroom just to secure the basics for his daughters. Owens fathered 4 children and still ended up tangled in court. The next man more than doubled that number, and the chaos that followed makes these battles look almost orderly by comparison. Travis Henry. If neglect can be measured in scale, then few examples sprawl as wide as the one left behind by Travis Henry, a man undone by creating more children than he could ever hope to care for. A bruising running back drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2001, who also wore the colors of the Tennessee Titans and the Denver Broncos. He became famous less for his yardage and more for his family tree. This man fathered 9 children, reportedly as many as 11, with 9 or 10 different women scattered across multiple states. It turned into the textbook case of paternal neglect through financial abandonment and absenteeism, and his daughters were caught right in the middle of it. The core problem was simple math with devastating consequences. By 2009, Henry faced obligations estimated at around $170,000 a year. He claimed it left him broke, even after signing multi-million-dollar contracts earlier in his career. He faced contempt proceedings multiple times for falling behind, owing $16,600 in one Florida case alone. Mothers across different states had to chase him through the legal system again and again, just to secure support for kids who never asked to be born into chaos. In interviews, Henry admitted the strain but insisted he loved his children, even as he struggled to actually pay for them. He kept seeking reductions, arguing that he was unemployed once football ended. He tried to modify a $3,000 monthly order for one child, with similar fights breaking out over the others, including his daughters. And the reporting painted a bleak picture. Kids spread across different mothers in different cities, often growing up without any reliable financial or physical presence from the man who'd fathered them. What makes it sting even more is that Henry himself grew up with an absentee father, and then turned around and repeated that exact pattern on a far larger scale than the one that shaped him. Legal records showed him owing thousands in case after case, with at least one situation threatening him with jail time until the money got paid, and his post-NFL life only spiraled further, with later drug-related troubles that wrecked whatever ability he might have had left to provide any kind of stability. This wasn't a man who simply couldn't afford one child. This was a man who built a small army of children, then couldn't or wouldn't hold up his end for any of them with any consistency. His daughters didn't get a dad standing in the doorway. They got a name on a court docket and a number in a payment plan. Henry's failures lived in filings and arrears, a slow grind of paperwork and missed checks. The next man's failure exploded in a single moment. Thomas Burke. Some men on this list earned their place through rage, but the accusations against Thomas Allen Burke describe a betrayal of a far more sinister kind, the kind that hides behind the word secret. A former defensive end who spent 4 seasons in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals from 1999 to 2002 after a standout run at the University of Wisconsin that later earned him a spot in the school's Athletic Hall of Fame in 2020. He carried the look of a hometown hero. He was 44 years old, originally from the Poplar and Rice Lake area of Wisconsin. And in 2021, that hometown hero image collided with a charge of first-degree criminal sexual conduct involving the repeated sexual assault of a 7-year-old girl who knew him in a trusted father figure-like capacity. According to the criminal complaint, the little girl disclosed to her mother in February of 2021 that Burke had assaulted her on numerous occasions. She described it in heartbreaking words as something that's been a secret. In a later forensic interview, she gave detailed accounts, indicating as many as 4 or 5 separate incidents involving inappropriate touching of her genital area. She described Burke using his hand in his mouth, and in at least one instance, she said she asked him to stop, and that he did. The assaults allegedly happened when Burke was alone with her in St. Louis County, Minnesota, in the Duluth area. A man trusted enough to be left alone with a child, accused of turning that trust into a weapon. The mother reported the disclosures promptly, and that report led to Burke's arrest in June of 2021. He faced a potential prison sentence of 12 to 14 years or more if convicted, but Burke never bent. He denied everything, insisting there were no sexual acts at all. He took the witness stand in his own defense and described his disbelief when police first showed up at his home with these accusations. He looked the jury in the eye and told them it never happened. Then came the trial in January of 2024, where the child herself took the stand and testified about what she said she'd lived through. After deliberation, a St. Louis County jury came back and acquitted Burke on all 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct, not guilty in late January of 2024. So here is a man cleared by a jury of his peers, free to walk out the courthouse door. And yet the allegations, the forensic interview, the public trial, all of it pulled the most private corners of his life into the open for everyone to weigh. A father figure accused of the unthinkable who walked free, leaving a community to sit with everything that had been said in that room. A jury gave Burke the benefit of the doubt. The next man left no doubt at all, because the words that sank him came straight out of his own mouth. Christian Barmore. Few images cut deeper than a violent outburst unfolding with a 2-year-old girl standing right there in the home, and that is the storm that engulfed Christian Barmore, a powerful defensive tackle drafted by the New England Patriots in the 2nd round in 2021 out of Alabama. This rising star found himself facing domestic violence charges over an incident on August 8, 2025. The alleged victim was Sloane Smith-Jerdsky, the mother of his then 2-year-old daughter, a woman who was also pregnant with their 2nd child at the time of the alleged events. The couple had been on and off for about 3.5 years, living together in his apartment in Mansfield, Massachusetts. According to the criminal complaint and police report, the whole thing started over something almost absurdly small, a dispute about the apartment's air conditioning set at 70 degrees instead of his preferred 68. The next morning, after the woman brought their 2-year-old daughter in to see him in the master bedroom, Barmore allegedly grabbed her, threw her to the floor, and then grabbed her by the shirt near her neck when she tried to get back up. She reported bruising from being thrown down. She told police she feared retaliation, including Barmore threatening to have family members beat her up, which is part of why she hesitated to report it right away. She finally contacted Mansfield police on August 25, 2025, and filed for a restraining order. The whole thing unfolded with their toddler daughter present, building an environment of fear and instability around a child who was right there in close proximity to the violence against her mother. The case drew major attention given Barmore's prominence on the Patriots' defense, and one sports show didn't hold back on the franchise's silence.
Well, there's another New England Patriot who is being accused of violence against a woman, Christian Barmore.
The host immediately pointed at the part of the story that left questions hanging, the gap between the incident and the filing.
Now this dates back to August, it wasn't filed right away.
Prosecutors ultimately dropped the charge in March of 2026, stating it was not viable for prosecution after new information emerged, and the case never reached trial. The NFL reviewed the matter under its personal conduct policy and took no further public action once it was dismissed. Resolved legally without a conviction, yes, but the allegations still describe a young daughter caught in the middle of violence inside her own home, in the one place she was supposed to feel safe. Barmore's daughter was in the room when it all happened. Our final story put a baby just feet away too, except this time, there was no question about what happened, because the whole world watched it play out on video. Zac Stacy. Of every dark turn on this list, doing it on camera with an infant feet away might be the most haunting, and that is the permanent record attached to the name Zac Stacy. A former running back who suited up for the St. Louis and Los Angeles Rams and the New York Jets after being drafted in 2013. He became the face of one of the most disturbing domestic violence videos the sports world has ever seen. In November of 2021, a home surveillance camera captured him assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Kristen Evans, the mother of their 5-month-old son, inside her Florida home, with the infant on the couch just feet away from all of it. The video, which went viral and horrified millions, shows him punching Evans multiple times in the head, picking her up and hurling her into a television stand hard enough to crack it and send it falling on top of her. He slammed her to the ground and kept going, even as she begged him to stop because the baby was right there. The assault lasted minutes, uncontrolled rage, with a 5-month-old watching it unfold from a couch he couldn't even crawl off of yet. In an exclusive interview, Evans described how trapped the system had made her feel and how long this nightmare had actually been building before that night.
So is this the first time he really got physical with you?
No, he's been physical with me several times.
She'd lived through this before. It wasn't a first, and she carried a fear that is genuinely hard to hear spoken out loud.
I really truly feel that if it continues, he will kill me.
She also laid bare the cruel irony of how Florida law first treated her case, where it was the broken television, not her battered body, that bumped the charge up to a felony.
So therefore, my TV is worth more than what my life is worth.
Her own vigilance, along with a detective and an officer who took the case on personally, helped upgrade the charges to aggravated battery. Stacy was arrested in Orlando after the video surfaced. In 2023, he pleaded guilty to criminal mischief, a reduced charge, and was sentenced to 6 months in jail. His youth football ambassador role was terminated immediately. Evans went on to become a mental health advocate, and that video remains one of the most graphic reminders of how the youngest members of these households become silent witnesses to the very worst moments imaginable. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, keep the adventure alive by clicking on one of the suggested videos on your screen right now for more amazing content.